Hi, this is Rob McLaughlin. Welcome to Sound Advice. Today we're going to take a look at using DCAs as a tool to remote control a set of faders just to make our mixing work go a little bit smoother. Here we go. Alright, if we want to follow along from where we left off last time, we were talking about mixing the band, and so we have our 18 channels of the band, and we were creating a mix as we were listening to the audio, kick, snare, the rest of the drums and guitars. Vocals were down at this end, some little vocal parts that were there. This was our lead vocal on 15 and our backup vocals on 16, 17, 18. So today what we want to do is simplify things a little bit by creating or utilizing what's known as a DCA. DCA, the acronym stands for Digitally Controlled Amplifier. And we want to be very clear so you understand that there is no audio associated with a DCA. A DCA is simply a remote control for a group of sliders. All right, let's us adjust a group of sliders as one, as a remote control, but no audio associated with a DCA. All right, so if you remember from mixing the band, I have 4 guitar parts. They are down here 7, 8, 9, and 10. And when the guitars had a solo, I grab the 4 sliders and push the guitars up, bring them forward into their solo, and then when their solo was finished, I would put them back down where they sat into the mix. Now that was an easy change because first of all, it's only 4 sliders, and I could grab them, and they all happen to be, 1, 2, 3, 4 all in a row. I could even grab with one hand if I really wanted to. I could take those 4 sliders and, do that with them. 4 sliders isn't really that too bad. But what happens if, we've got a guitar down here, and a second guitar over here, and maybe a third guitar, way down here. And so now it becomes more difficult to grab those 3 sliders and move them all up as a single unit. So that's where DCA is going to help us out. We can assign all of a particular group, instrumentation in this case, to a DCA and allow us to have that remote control of that group of sliders as a single unit. All right, so let's take a look at the, if we go over here, down at this end of, again, we're using the Q32 so that we can see 4 channels of DCAs. Now right now, of course, I have my lower layer selected, 4 channels. If I change to my upper layer, now my DCAs are lit. So DCA 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are my 4 DCAs on the far left end of my fader bank. And again, what I can do is assign particular channels to a DCA to have that remote control. So let's do a close-up of the screen here. All right, so first of all, I'm going to select the DCA. I'll just go from here to here. When I select the DCA, I get the assignment screen for that particular DCA. And you can see that I've already done this exercise a couple of times. So I've got the DCA labeled as guitar, and I have assigned channel 7, 8, 9, and 10 to this group. Now, by the way, here's just a little tip. To label your DCA, you have to do that on the Masters tab. Okay, so out here on the Masters tab, you'll see where I've labeled it guitar. And number 2 doesn't have a label, so you got a little pencil there. If I click that, I get my keyboard. Cancel out of that. If I touch the number 1, there's where I've labeled it as a guitar. So, but again, the labeling has to be done on this Masters tab. The assignment then for DCA groups, and I got all 4 of them there, but I'm assigning number 1. And it's as simple as turning them on. Now, again, I've already done this a couple of times, but I'll turn them off for a moment. Just simply touch them, turn them off. They say out or in. And again, to assign them, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So I've just set the 4 of them to be part of this DCA. Down at the bottom corner here, we can't get everything on this screen, so a little button to go to the rest of our channel count in case you wanted anything in the upper channels. You can also assign effects returns, effects ends, all of the mixes, even all of the groups as well to this DCA and control them all. If you want a quick shortcut to turn them all on or all off, down in the bottom corner here, you will see there's an all out button, and that'll change to all in. Just flip them back and forth just to save you going and hitting all of the individual channel assignments. But now I've got those 4 channels, 7, 8, 9, and 10, are now assigned to DCA 1. So what that means is now, I come back here, while I am mixing, I can switch to DCA 1, always remembering that, of course, DCAs are on the upper layer. If you're on the lower layer, you'd be adjusting, if you grab that slider, you'd be adjusting channel 29. Don't want to be doing that. Grab the layers, DCA 1, and now I can bring all of those guitars up at one time, or I can bring them all down at one time. And again, this is just simply a remote control for the 4 fader channels that we assigned to this DCA. Again, no audio behind a DCA, just strictly a remote control for the fader. But that's an easy way now, rather than having to try and grab all of those channels with different fingers. That's an easy way now to control all of those with a single fader. Okay, now that I have a DCA for the 4 channels of my guitar, 7, 8, 9, 10, I'm going to make use of 2 more DCAs. One for my drums, which I know are on channels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So those are my drum tracks. And then the next DCA we're going to utilize for vocals, which happens to be channels 15, 16, 17, 18. All right, so let's go through this process. So again, back up to my screen where I have my DCA assignment. I got to this screen, by the way, by simply selecting the DCA. It would bring me to this screen. And you can see DCA number 2. We're going to use that for our drums. It says DCA group 2, which tells me there is no label yet. So back to the master tab, select DCA 2, and DRUMS. We'll just make this drums. Okay. And then back to our assignment. So again, selecting 2 for drums. And I know my drums is channels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's as easy as that. All right, to assign those 4 channels. I can, by the way, while I'm in here, just jump to the second page, because I can't get all my channels on this one particular screen. So if I jump to the second page, just to make sure, there is one more channel. It's assigned here from some last engineer that was working, so I want to make sure I take that out. So I just have channels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that's it. I now have control of my drums on my single fader. If I now come down here to my upper layer, DCA 2, I can now bring the entire drum kit up with one fader, or bring the entire drum kit down with that one fader. All right, so that's what that DCA buys me. Let's do the second one. Then I said I wanted to do a DCA for my vocals, which are channel 15, 16, 17, and 18. And you'll remember that 15 is my lead vocal, and then they had 3 singers singing backup. And so obviously the lead vocal is a fair bit hotter. The level's quite a bit higher than those 3 backup singers. And that level will be retained because the DCA, again, is just like taking a master, and it will bring them all down together or bring them all up together. And their relative position, and again, the lead vocal being much higher than the 3 backups, that will stay in place, okay? And it will just bring them all up and down as a group. So let's do that. Over to my DCA assign again, and this time we're going to put them on 3. It's been used for something else. So we'll go to masters and change the label. We're going to make this my vocals. Oops. VOCALS. There we go. So this is DCA 3 is vocals. Then to my assign. And you can see right away, looking on this screen, there's been quite a few channels have been assigned and not assigned. And I could go and turn them all off if I wanted. Again, making sure I go to the second page so I don't miss any that might be there on the second page. Here's a quick shortcut. This is simply use the all button in the corner. All will turn them on, all turn them all in, pardon me, and then a second time would turn them all off. So that's a quick way to reset your DCA. And now I can go to channels 15, 16, 17, and 18. And that's it. I've now assigned those 4 channels to DCA number 3. And again, I can come back here and go to my upper layer to select my DCAs. Go DCA 3. Now, as I'm mixing, I can bring all of the vocals up with a single slider, or bring them all down with that single slider. Again, just a remote control for those group of sliders. Okay, so for those of you using a Q16, you can still do the same thing with DCAs, except they're just not obvious. They're a little bit hidden. Your DCAs still exist on the last 4 sliders of the desk. However, because we don't have the channel space to print them out, they are on the custom layer. So the only way to get to them is to use the custom layer, and that involves hitting both the lower and upper layer at the same time, and that takes you into the custom layer. All right, so now on the custom layer you can pretty much assign anything you want to any of these channels. However, by default, the last 4 channels are assigned to your 4 DCAs. So you'll see here as I select channels, I'm on the custom layer, and I select channels because in my case I haven't put anything else on my custom layer. I haven't assigned anything to my custom layer. However, when I get right down to channel, in this case 13, 14, 15, 16 on the Q16, when I select channel 13, again I'm on my custom layer, select channel 13, you will see on the screen, and I'll just change a close-up to the screen here, I now have my DCA group assignment. Alright, and so 13 was DCA 1. If I select 14, it's now DCA 2. Select 15 is DCA 3, and 16 is DCA 4. Okay, so again, just to back out a little bit here, I'm selecting, I'm on my custom layer, and I've selected 13, brought me to the assignment of DCA group 1, 14, DCA group 2, 13, DCA group 3, or 15, and 16, DCA group 4. Alright, so that's where we can assign, and the process to assign is exactly the same as I just showed you to assign channels. So for instance, let's do a quick example here. If I want to assign DCA group 1, and I want that to be my, what was it, 4 channels of guitar, I think. We're 7, 8, 9, and 10. There we go. DCA group 1. And group 2, I wanted to assign my drum kit, which was 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. DCA 3, I wanted to use that for my vocals, and that was 15, 16. Now, here's a trick. 17, 18. Technically, ST1 and ST2, which is stereo 1 and stereo 2, are channels 17 and 18, technically, on a Q16. So it takes a little bit of wrapping your head around that, but that's basically the same thing. So when I bring those channels in from my USB key, they will actually come in stereo 1 and stereo 2, so that would be 17 and 18. Alright, anyway, that's the easy way to utilize the DCA groups on your Q16. They are not printed anywhere on the board itself, on any of the labeling, but they are on the last 4 channels, 13, 14, 15, 16, of the custom layer. Again, hitting both the layer buttons at the same time brings you into the custom layer, and that's will get you access to your DCAs on a Q16. To remind you, if you are using a Q16, about setting up that custom layer, just in case someone has been in, because it is a custom layer, you can set it to what you want. So let's go back here to our screen. Again, I'm looking at the Q16, and if I select the audio tab, again I've gone to setup, this would be processing on a channel. If I select setup, I go to audio, and the next tab over is control. So if I select control, the first tab is my custom layer, and you can see on the custom layer there's my 16 channels or my 16 sliders, and I can assign them all I want. Now by default, you'll see that there is 13, 14, 15, 16 have been assigned to DCA 1, 2, 3, 4. Now in case, as I said, someone has come in and changed this custom layer on you and you're not finding your DCAs, that's how. So each of these, let's first take 13, and just using the encoder knob, I can just change DCA, whatever I want to assign to channel 13, slider number 13, actually they'll call it slider 13, and you can go through basically the entire board. Anything you want can be assigned to this slider on the custom layer. And I'll go back here, and then finally we'll find DCAs are right close to the very end of the list. There's DCA, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the last is MIDI. But we want, in this case, for slider 13, we want DCA 1, and then DCA 2, DCA 3, and DCA 4. All right, so just in case that custom layer setup has been changed on you, that's how you can ensure that you get access to your DCAs on the Q16. Okay, so to wrap up for today, we talked about DCAs and the ability to assign channels to a DCA as basically a remote control for that group of sliders. There's no audio involved in a DCA. One last thing I also wanted to point out was the term DCA, Digital Control Amplifier, and the similar term is VCA, which is Voltage Control Amplifier. Now, VCA comes from an analog world, and most analog boards would be labeled VCA, and a digital board is typically labeled DCA. And that's the difference between a DCA and VCA. It's just simply VCAs were analog, DCAs are digital. But we're talking about exactly the same thing. When you use the term DCA or VCA, we're talking about exactly the same thing. Now, I do use the word typically because I know of at least one manufacturer who has created a digital mixer, but decided to carry on the use of the term VCAs. So on their digital mixer, those controls are marked as VCAs. And so it can be a little confusing when you see some marked VCA, some marked DCA. But essentially, we're talking about exactly the same thing. One is the VCA is just a holdover from the analog world. DCAs are more typically from a digital environment. So again, make your life a little bit easier. Assign groups of channels to DCAs so you can control them with a single fader rather than having to try and grab a group of sliders and move them up and down as the need would be. Hope that's been helpful. Thanks very much.